Hi, good morning, everybody. Got a quick verse here for you, a quick message that God's really put on my heart, and I'm sure a lot of us have said it before. If you're watching this and you have any church background or you've been around people who go to church or you've been in church yourself, you've probably heard it before. But it's it's something that's important to me because it's easy for me. I see it. I've probably done it myself. I know I have. We pick and choose parts of the Bible that we like. We pick and choose the things that we can work to our agenda. We can use them to our advantage, and we know some things, but the things that we don't like, we kind of sidestep and ignore it, and overlook it, and can justify it in so many different ways. And that's not biblical. That's not how it is. We have to take the Bible, the whole Bible, and everything in it, the good parts and the bad parts, the things that suck and the things that make us uncomfortable. Well, we should have to take those too, along with the blessings and all the other things. And so, like I said, we probably heard that before, and I think it's used a lot. People pick and choose. Oh, you don't judge, and anything that's going to work out and sound good at the time, we're all guilty of it. We've all done it, and so I was reading in First Kings chapter 3 is where it starts, and it's the story of Solomon, and what Solomon says. When God's talking to him and asking, he's blessing Solomon, and Solomon's king, and he asks Solomon what he needs. I'm paraphrasing here, but he asks Solomon, what do you need in life? What is the one thing that I can help you with? And Solomon tells him, just give me wisdom. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for cars, chariots of gold. He didn't ask for a million or anything. He just asked for wisdom, and in turn, God granted him. He was the wisest man that we know about and we read about, and also God gave him all those other things that I just mentioned without even asking. He was rich. He was a great king. He had all kinds of things going for him. But the wisdom is what I really want to hit on, which was the thing that he asked for and what God really gave him. He was just a super, super wise man. He was the wisest man, like I said, we know about, which leads me to Deuteronomy chapter 7. And that's a command from Moses, well, it's a command from God, but it's written by Moses, and the laws of Moses, which Solomon would have been super proficient in knowing, because one, he was the wisest guy. Two, he was part of the Jewish people, so he knew what the law of Moses said. And in Deuteronomy chapter 7, it talks about not intermarrying and not marrying people of other cultures. And this wasn't a race thing. God's not a racist by any means, and it wasn't because one group of people were superior or inferior to the other. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't anything to do with that. But looking back at it, and us looking at it and reading about it, and then seeing how it played out in Solomon's life, we can see that now. We can see what God's plan was. But Solomon didn't see what God's plan was, and it wasn't Solomon's job to see what God's plan was. All God asked of him was to obey. And one thing that Solomon didn't do right, and he did a million things good, but the one thing that he didn't do right was he disobeyed that law, and he married all these other women. He had 5, 6, 700 something concubines and wives, and the reason for that, the reason God didn't want them to intermarry, was because of their pagan religions, their other religions, the things that they worshipped, whether it be a golden calf, whether it be child sacrifice at some crazy god that they believed. Whatever the case may be, it wasn't from God, and that was God's purpose. Was He didn't want these relationships between a man and a wife to cause trouble where one started believing the pagan religion and not putting God first. And so, as a Jew and as the wise man that he was, I can't help but think that Solomon obviously knew that command. And so, towards the end of Solomon's life, after all the good things that he'd done, the one thing that he failed at was all the wives from different places that had different religions and believed different things. And Solomon fell in where God didn't want him to fall in. And for the reason that God didn't want him to marry these women was what ended up eventually biting him in the butt, what caused him the trouble. And so in the end, he had set up all these Asherah poles, and he had all this stuff that was not from God. It was ungodly, and it ruined him. It was his demise, and that's what the problem was for Solomon. And so I say that, and I go back to, in James chapter 1, verse 22, Jesus' half brother James is writing, and he says, don't just listen to the law, but obey it. And he's telling us, just like Solomon listened to the word. He knew the word, but he didn't obey it. And James, he reflects through that. A lot of times it plays all the things that James tells us. Is a lot of time it's a reflection of Jesus' teaching, which is where we get our verse. And it's Jesus is speaking in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24. It says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. And that's what we need to be. We need to be that solid rock, not only for us, but our families, for other new believers, for Christians, for people who don't even know Christ. We have to be that. And Jesus doesn't say anyone who listens to my teachings is wise and they'd be good to go. He says anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise. And so that's my encouragement this week. And it may sound preachy, but my encouragement to all of us and to myself as well is let's just not listen to what God says. Let's just not read the Bible and hear it, but let's apply it to our lives. And let's, sometimes it's going to suck. Sometimes it means doing things that make us uncomfortable or doing things that we're not sure where we're at. We don't know how we feel about this person or this situation, but if that's what God's told us to do, then we need to do that. And so, like I said, my encouragement this week is to study your word. And whenever God speaks to you, whenever you see something, let's just not hear it and see it and read it, but let's apply it to our lives. And I hope everybody can have a good week this week and keep praying for each other. And I'll talk to y'all next week.